so I've got 10 minutes to tell you a little bit about Comdev's view of driving value from space. And I guess to start with, I've really got to start by talking about where we fit into the value chain and what we do. And this is a sort of typical example of a piece of hardware that we produce. This is a multiplexer that goes on a geocommunication spacecraft. This is the sort of thing that we've flown on 950 spacecraft, so 80% of the larger spacecraft that are up there will have Comdev hardware on board. We are a typical supplier of this sort of equipment to the big primes around the world, the Airbuses, the Thales, people like that. The name and the brand isn't particularly well known, and actually when I was describing this yesterday to somebody about the company, I was talking about the fact that we're probably, to the space industry, what ARM chips are to iPhones. Everybody knows iPhones and know Apple, but actually there's an ARM chip in every single one of the last 3 iterations of an iPhone that's key to making it work. Comdev very much is the same in the industry. We're the supplier of those key components that make a lot of those big commercial spacecraft work. So been around for 40 or 50 years. We can't quite nail it. But we've got about 1,400 people. We're a Canadian company, and we've got now around just over 200 people in the UK, and we're trying to grow very much our profile in the UK. If you look at us as a company, we absolutely kind of fit exactly that profile that people were aiming at through the innovation and growth strategy. You look at the size of our business, we're sort of $200 million, but you look at our gross value add per employee, you look at our productivity per employee, you look at the amount of exports we do, about 80% of what we produce in the UK is exported. And by the way, I don't include an ESA project as an export because that's just recycled UK money. And we fit perfectly the profile of what people were trying to achieve when they talk about when politicians talk about why they're excited about this industry. So from that, you may have sort of got an impression of a very traditional big space company. You'd be right. But also over the course of the last decade or so, we're kind of stretching out into the sort of new space arena, into data services. And you'll see a small part of our turnover actually is exactly that new space stuff. And I'm going to come back and talk about that sort of enterprise that we've got there. I guess one other sort of word of warning I'd have as well is, like, we're all very excited about new space, including Comdev, but we do need to be very aware that it's some of the bigger companies that generate the stats in terms of number of employees, gross domestic product, all those sorts of things that help us make that case to politicians that have got us the support we need from Innovate and people like that. So if you're going to get anything from this presentation or walk away with one conclusion, hopefully it'll be the one that the message is that we need a mixture of different sizes of companies, and we need a mixture of different sizes of companies if we're going to have a really sort of innovative sector that kind of drives value into Scotland. So coming back to the roots of what we do, what we're all about is RF, microwave. It's in our DNA. It's that sort of technology that is core to all of our products. And that's a really good place to be. It's a really good place to be because, as Peter said, everything depends on data. Everything everywhere we go is to do with data. A satellite is the ultimate wireless application. You've got no chance of plugging it into anywhere. You need to shift that data from place to place, back down to Earth, or get it up there, or monitor it, or measure it. Along the way, you're always going to be dependent upon sort of RF or microwave technology at some point in the journey, and that's where we come in building the sorts of equipments we do. Those equipments have application in Earth observation as well, so this is a particular expertise we've got in the UK, the RF front end that are on altimeters, that are on radar spacecraft, producing that sort of data is again core to our business. And I mentioned earlier that we've made this journey into some of the new space technology. We took that knowledge on sort of RF expertise and turned around and said, how can we actually, if we can detect these very faint signals that come from ship AIS transponders in space, how can we untangle all of those messages, and how can we actually detect those ships from space and actually tell people where they are? So we kind of figured out a way to do that a fair while ago, and eventually ended up putting some spacecraft up there that we invested in ourselves, and then span out a company from Comdev, which was a joint venture, 73% owned by us, called Exact Earth. So this is exactly the model of the new space sort of world. It's investing in, with private capital, using smaller spacecraft to establish a data service which you can then go and sell. And our particular route for realising value from this was actually spinning it out as a joint venture, and shortly we're going to be announcing some next steps that we're doing with that company, which will take it to the next stage of its evolution. So, I guess then I'll sort of talk about Scotland and specifically why I'm here. Well, Comdev's been in the UK since 1985, but we're a relatively new entrant to Scotland, very pleased to be here, and that comes on the back of an acquisition that we made in December. So I want to talk about why we came to Scotland and what it is we saw. And in order to do that, I've probably got to start by talking about the fundamentals of the upstream side of our industry. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all driven by the fact that we're producing low volumes of stuff. If we get to produce 2s, 3s, 4, 5 of something, we get quite excited. If somebody comes along with a constellation of 700 spacecraft, we're kind of frothing at the mouth and falling over ourselves in excitement. And even if I take it to the absolute extreme of thousands of CubeSats per year, it's still a tiny volume. And if you've got a tiny volume of stuff you're producing, absolutely everything that matters is how efficiently you can develop new products. Because you're not going to recover a ton of your cost by selling tens of thousands or millions of anything. So it's all about how efficiently and quickly you can develop those new products. So in order to do that, to get to the lowest cost of new product development, I think that kind of what's really, really important is what kind of we term an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. I'll talk about why I think that there is the beginnings of that here in Scotland and why that attracted us to this place. And it attracted us here to acquire this company, MESL Microwave, based across in Edinburgh, who we since rebranded as part and brought into our Comdev family. And that's our beginnings of our first steps into Scotland. And we want to come on and do a lot more here, and we will do. So, coming back to that ecosystem and what it is that we think or we could see here that helps us drive value, I think there's 5 bits to that. I mean, first one, this is probably a similar thing to what Peter was talking about. It's that knowledge base. It's about universities, it's about skills, it's about new technology being developed with a very long-term vision. Because the thing we're not very good at as a company is setting out to develop technology that's going to be there and needed in 10 years' time. We're much better at doing stuff that's nearer term. So you need that knowledge base of new ideas, and you need those industry skills. And on the RF microwave side, that was here and around in the defence industry, actually, in Scotland. Companies like Selex, like Track, people like that, all a long heritage in the type of technology, but a different industry. So that base was there. Secondly, actually having that help to do early stage investment is really important. So actually having a government sort of entity like Scottish Enterprise, like Innovate, actually helping to subsidise R&D, the 50 cents funding, is a big deal. Now, I don't want to present this as your industry can only survive if it has subsidised R&D. That's the wrong way of looking at it. The way we look at it is, actually we've got a certain amount we can afford to invest because we've got a certain amount of capital. All the help I can get helps me double the amount of R&D I can do. It doubles the amount of new products. It doubles the growth. It doubles the value that I can deliver. So that's why it's so important to us. Thirdly, absolutely, you've got to have a government that's got commercially focused policies. You've got to have a government that's got the ambition to kind of drive forward it as a commercial industry. It's there in spades in the innovation and growth strategy. The fact they specifically identified exports as a priority was all the right signals. Absolutely everything there made it a very easy job for me to sell it to my parent company in Canada that the UK is a great place to do space. You've got to have the startup companies, you've got to have the catapults and the startups and the VC funds, all of those things that generate the small companies that are going to end up being the companies that companies like mine acquire along the way. We need that feed of those small companies. And the small companies need the bigger companies because you kind of need people who are going to acquire you and buy you and take you on and take you to the next stage of development. We're kind of seeing everything that's going on with the catapult here, and a lot of the small companies like, like Craig's, like Peter's, it's kind of all exactly the right culture. And then of course the other thing that's absolutely important, we think, is you need these big multinational enterprises and other industries to come to Scotland and to be here, because you need the volume of business. You need that volume of business so that it supports the supply base, because we all need those suppliers, and you can't do it if you're just a really small industry. So attracting the big companies is kind of really important as well. So I guess coming on to what next for us, I mean, here in Scotland specifically, we acquired MESL. We've won our first export orders for that. We did that by bringing products across from Canada, bringing intellectual property into the UK, setting up lines, training people. That was a £20 million investment, and we've won our first contracts out of that already. We've done a lot of business in the UK off the back of this. Even just in the last month, we've won a £2 million export contract selling RF equipment into a Chinese spacecraft. This is all within the space of 11 months, going from the start to actually generating real exports from here. So the next step, of course, is how do we create our own IP here and create our own products here? We think that there's the right base, the right culture in which to do that, and the right ingredients, and that's going to be the next step. The other one is that I've spoken a lot about Exact Earth. That was a very good model for the company. We use the technology to generate a data service, and then we spin it out and we sell it on. We're not stopping there. We want what's Exact Earth 2, what's Exact Earth 3, what are the other data services that we're going to generate. So there are a lot of things to come on that I wish I could talk about, but of course they're things that we're kind of keeping a little bit close to our chest at the moment. And I guess that probably brings me on to saying I think that what you will see in the very near future is a lot of change in Comdev. You'll see that probably there already has been a lot of change in the journey we've been on from a purely very traditional space company into one that's embracing new ideas and new ways of working and new ways of working in that global market, new ways of leveraging the export markets, new ways of growing our company. There's been a lot of change already. There is a lot of change to come. No matter what that change is, we're very convinced that Scotland is a good place where we intend to stay and where we intend to continue growing. So, thank you.